Welcome to Flavour Text, a podcast where we examine the intersection between lore, story, and gameplay in Arkham Horror the card game. I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'm joined, as usual, by my returning colleague, Kevling. Hi, Kevling. How are you?
Yes, I'm back again. You can't get rid of me that easy.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah.
How's things?
Good. Yeah, good. I'm back at work tomorrow, so I'm feeling, that kind of sad, sinking feeling when your holidays are all over and you got to go back to work. So I'm kind of okay.
I've been back all week. I was back on Tuesday,
okay.
So already 4 days ahead of you. And it was a very long week.
I can't say I'm looking forward to it. But apart from that, I had a great break. Doing lots of good stuff. Didn't go anywhere. It was a staycation, so I had lots of time to play lots of games and things like that. What about yourself?
I'm trying to think now. What games did I play over the holidays? Yeah, we didn't do very much. In November, I had a flu bug, so that sort of wiped my voice out for 4 weeks, which is why we are delayed recording this episode. No one wanted to hear me croaking in a microphone, well, even more than I usually do. I'm trying to think what I'd done. I bought a copy of Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 yesterday, so I just started diving into that with some money my daughter gave me for Christmas. We had a bit of a mistake at Christmas in that she bought something off my gift list but didn't mark that she'd bought it, and then my brother in America bought me exactly the same thing. So she's got the job of having to send it back. It's easier for her than him, and it's her fault. So she said, "I'll just give you the money."
Awesome.
Trying to think what else. My board games pile of unplayed board games is still growing. My stretch goals for ISS Vanguard turned up on Friday.
Yeah.
So this week I actually set ISS Vanguard up on my desk to actually have an attempt at finishing the original campaign now that I've got the stretch goal campaign to play through. I think that's it really. Yeah, what about yourself?
So I'm trying to think. So I think I was talking about playing Prey back when we spoke last. Just the best. If you like immersive sims like Dishonored, things like that, it's just brilliant. And the DLC, Moon Crash, is just even more brilliant. It's like a kind of a roguelike version of the original game, so you keep running through it over and over again. So I platinumed both of them this week. It took me about 3 months to get there, so I feel a bit bereft after that because it took up so much of my time. That was a big thing for me over the break. And so I'm now on to Detroit Become Human. So that's the next thing I have to play. My daughter has been nagging me to play that for her. Yeah, so I'm currently washing dishes and cleaning laundry at the moment, which is not filling me with the greatest amount of excitement, but I get
that's a bit of escapism for you there.
Yes, that's right. Just what I want to do, domestic drudgery. But anyway, I'm sure the stories will pick up. So I'm doing that. Yeah. I played Bloodborne, the board game, a lot. I got that on Kickstarter. I haven't played. I've got all the expansion, I think most of them. And I played it quite a bit with my daughter. It's really, really good. It's a little bit like Arkham Horror, the card game. It's story-driven with cards, and as you progress the story, you unfold it, you do missions. And it does, if you've played Bloodborne, it does a brilliant job of capturing that without bogging you down in a sort of a board game where it would get very tedious and monotonous. So it manages to sort of walk that line really well. Unlike Dark Souls, the board game, which had some real problems with that kind of having to redo things over and over again, which in a video game makes sense, doesn't make sense in a board game. So what else? I've been playing Elder Sign. I'm still working through that. I think that's about it, really. Yeah.
Oh, we had our first multiplayer game of Earthborn Rangers this week as well at our local game store. We've not been, with Christmas and everything. The usual group of us haven't been able to meet up for a while, so
Yep.
Yeah, this is the first one. We have a go at Earthborn Rage, and it does a really good tutorial because, like Arkham Horror, it's an LCG type of game. You
Yep.
construct your deck before you start, but it is a bit more of an open world. And it's a lot more chilled, and there's not as much death in it.
Okay.
But the tutorial was really nice. You thought, okay, let's set up a couple of locations, and right, here's your personality cards. Pick a few of each, and then you will just do a couple of rounds with that and see how you get on. And it goes, right, now you've done a couple of rounds. Now let's do the next bit of your deck building, and we'll go and look at your background and your history. And essentially, it's a little bit like, have you played Marvel Champions?
No, I've never played it. No.
So the deck building of Marvel Champions is you got cards that are specific to your hero and cards that are specific to the type of hero you want to be, like Justice or Power or whatever.
Oh, I see.
So you deck build from those two selections. So on Earthborn Rangers, it's a little bit like that. You've got cards for personality, cards for your background, and then cards for your training as well. So you've got almost like three sources of deck building, but with a limited pool for each. So it's not quite as overwhelming as opening up your 2,000 card Arkham Horror collection and thinking, where do I start now?
Yeah, where do you start? Yeah.
But no, it was really good. Yes, we had a bit of a wander around and dealt with a few scenarios, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. So that's good. Looking forward
great.
to it. And the tutorial's finished, and we're now about to start the campaign proper. So that might be next week.
Yeah. I'm back at Arkham Horror next Thursday, and we're doing, before Hemlock Vale comes out, we're doing the challenge scenarios. So I'm starting with Agnes next week. You know, I can't remember what the name of the challenge scenarios are, but they're the
print and play ones that come with the parallel investigators. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So I've never played them, so I'm looking forward to that.
Is there a fight over who plays Agnes then? If it's Agnes's specific scenario.
Well, there was 4 Daisy Agnes, so I chose Agnes, someone chose Daisy, and then I think we rotate each week until and I guess that'll take us through I don't know when Hemlock Vale's coming out. Is it February, I think, or something?
I've got no idea. I'm a little bit out of the loop, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think it is. So it's not far away. It's about maybe a month away or so. So yeah.
Excellent.
There we go. Yes. So where are we at? I guess I think last time we finished everything off, and we're here at the discussing the return to scenarios, aren't we, Kevling?
Yes, I think obviously we're not going to go in absolute detail of every scenario because we've already done that, but just going to look at what's different in the return to, where it adds new things, and where we think it improves or not.
Yeah, and it's interesting because before I looked at these return tos, I kind of thought, they might nerf some things to kind of make it easier. And it's interesting that, well, we'll see whether they do that or not. But that was my expectation. I thought maybe that's where they'd go, but it's not quite where they went. But anyway, we'll talk about it, I guess.
Yeah.
So, should we start with what's the first one called? It's not the Rainforest, is it? Untamed Wilds.
Untamed Wilds, isn't it? I guess the first thing is they've changed the explore rules, haven't they? So that will apply to pretty much everything.
That's actually a really good point. That you're right. There's this sort of blanket change, isn't there, in how to use the explore rules? Yeah,
so observe the following additional rules while resolving explore abilities in Return to Forgotten Age. If an enemy is drawn from the exploration deck, it is resolved as normal. If it is discarded, place it in the encounter discard pile as you would normally, and this is considered an unsuccessful exploration. And then in some scenarios, there are additional changes to the explore rules.
Yeah. And I think one of the, I think, as we'll see, there's one kind of common one, which is around putting encounter cards back into the explore deck rather than gaming it, if you like, and going, we've done all of the encounter cards. We'd have to worry now. Well, they've sort of changed that for the return to,
I've just had a mental block now. How is this rule about the enemies different to the original, or did we not get enemies in the encounter?
We didn't get,
That was
from
it,
memory, there
That's
weren't
the
any
difference.
enemies. That's the difference. So
That's why I
in
can't
this
remember
one,
why it's
yeah.
different, because it wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it is
exactly.
completely new. There will now be
yeah.
enemies in the explore deck. Right.
Yes. And I mean, if anything, that makes it kind of more challenging in a way. So,
Yeah.
and then this card here with Return to the Untamed Wilds, there are new Rainforest. There's not really any new actual Untamed Wilds cards, as far as I can see, but there's some new Rainforest locations. But it says on the back, when building the exploration deck, include only one of the two locations with each of the following connection symbols chosen at random. So there's the moon, the triangle, the square. So basically, you're not necessarily getting all of the new locations in Return to. It's just more variation because you could randomly choose one of those ones. So, and then it says, for the duration of this scenario, the following additional rules apply. The check your supplies ability on the expedition camp can be used from any location.
So if on a multiplayer game, probably one of you would stay at the camp and keep filtering the explore deck, while the other one actually goes off and does the exploring.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So now you can do that from any location, which makes sense because if you've got a map is inherently transportable. So you would think you'd be able to take the map with you.
No. The map is stapled to your camp. You can't take it away.
That's right. Yeah. It's super glued to the table. So that makes kind of logical sense. It makes it easier in a way, because then you're not having to. It makes it more efficient because you're not having to go back and forth, which I think is a pretty good one. So yeah.
So I guess the other part of it as well is there's this forced effect, isn't there? After a successful exploration ends, shuffle the top card of the encounter deck into the exploration deck, and then obviously attach this card to the reference card as a reminder. So as you said earlier, it's a way of keeping some danger in the exploration rather than filtering it all out and knowing that the explore deck is now safe.
Exactly. And if you keep successfully exploring, you're going to end up with more encounter cards in there than you are location cards. So it's it kind of it gets more difficult the more successful you are, kind of thing, which I think is all fine. I think that
thematically it fits better, doesn't it? It's not like things get safer the more you explore.
No, exactly, and it also, I guess, it balances out being able to take the map. So you can take the map, but it's going to be a bit more challenging because you're going to, in that way, which is good. I think I actually really like it. I think it's quite a nice addition in that way. Yeah, yep. Should we go through the new locations?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. First one I have is Trail of the Dead. 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator, jungle location, and it has the forced effect. After you investigate or explore while at Trail of the Dead, check your supplies. If no investigator at this location has binoculars, take a horror. So, just adding to the list of things that will hurt you if you've not picked the right thing in your supply kit.
The other one is the Cloud Forest, which is a 3 shroud, 2 clues per investigator location with a victory point. Forced, when an enemy at Cloud Forest would be dealt any amount of damage, check your supplies. If no investigator at Cloud Forest has torches, cancel that damage. So if you have torches, if no one has the torches, you cancel the damage. In other words, you're shrouded. They can't do you any damage.
But you've still done your action, so you've wasted it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see. It says cancelling the damage, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess that's just trying to catch you out in case you forget that you haven't got a torch and you go and attack something anyway, because if you know that's going to happen, you wouldn't do it, would you?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a theme here, though, that clearly they felt that the supplies weren't being utilized enough in the story, because there's a theme here that they're checking the supplies and doing more of that. So clearly they felt that, these new cards clearly looking to use those supplies a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was the occasional thing about having the
Occasional.
canteen or having the rope, but mostly it was in between the scenarios just to give you a kicking, wasn't it?
Exactly. So I think this is good because it means that if you've chosen stuff, it can be much, it gets used, it gets utilized a bit more. So, yeah.
I'll pick the next one. I have Waterfall. So a 4 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. And as a reaction, when you investigate Waterfall, check your supplies again. If an investigator at Waterfall has rope, reduce its shroud by 3 for this investigation. So that's quite significant.
Yeah.
But forced, after you fail a skill test while investigating Waterfall, discard a card at random from your hand. So if you don't have rope, it's going to be difficult, and you've got that risk of losing your cards if you fail. Whereas if you do have rope, it's just a 1 shroud location and makes it much more manageable.
And I guess the idea there is the waterfalls are a bit treacherous. You're trying to, so if you've got the rope, it helps out. And then the final new one was Riverside Temple, which is a 1 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. It's forced after any number of clues are discovered from Riverside Temple, check your supplies. Again, checking supplies. If no investigator at Riverside Temple has chalk, shuffle an equal number of cards from the top of the encounter deck into the exploration deck. Wow.
So the number is the number of clues you discover, isn't it?
Yep.
That's the equal. So it's a low shroud location with potentially a bunch of clues if there's a 4-player game. Oh, hey, I've got to go in and get them all. Uh-oh.
Yes. Yeah. So I really like the way they're using the supplies a bit more. I think that was
definitely.
Yeah. So that I didn't expect. I didn't expect that, but I think it's a really nice thing to add to it. So that's all really. I mean, it plays out really exactly the same. It's just that you just, it would be a little bit more efficient, so you're not having to back and forth with the map, which helps particularly solo games and two-handers, I suppose. Is that,
yes.
And if you've chosen supplies, that don't necessarily have such an impact in the original game, they would actually have much more utility now. So that's good. Yep. So there we go. That's the Untamed Wilds.
Excellent. So next we have Return to the Doom of Etzley.
Ah, yes, the good old Doom of Etzley, yes.
So let's look at the instruction card. So it's the standard setup, but it says when gathering the encounter sets, use the new encounter sets here. So that it says instead of Yig's Venom, you get Venomous Hate. And instead of Temporal Flux, you get Temporal Hunters. Gather 3 Pit Viper cards and set them aside out of play. Before the setup, remove the original Burial Pit, Underground Ruins, and Secret Passage locations from the game. And replace Entryway, Ancient Hall, Grand Chamber, and Chamber of Time locations with the new versions. Swap the Harbinger of Volusia out for the new version, the Sleeper Returns. Haha, they got the return name in the card title there. And then when building the exploration deck, use Sealed Passage, Mosaic Chamber, Tomb of the Ancients, Throne Room, Snake Pit, Ancient Hall, and Grand Chamber. Do not include any of the other encounter cards listed in the original setup instructions. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of changes there. And then there's a forced effect as well. After the successful exploration ends, shuffle the top card of the encounter deck. So same as before.
Yes. Yeah.
Same as the previous return to, not same as normal.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot going on in this setup, isn't there? Switching out.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit different. The Harbinger is a little bit easier, I think, from the old Harbinger.
Yes, so it's a lower fight but a higher evade.
Also, the text under the Alert Hunter Retaliate, I think, is a little bit easier, I think.
At first,
slightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're choosing to fight, it's easier. If you're choosing to evade, it starts off harder but gets easier.
It's easier. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
It's a 4 instead of a 3.
Yeah.
evade at
Yeah.
first.
No. And also the venomous hate, the sort of more serpent enemies, but they're kind of a bit easier, but there's kind of more of them, right? So, yeah.
Okay, then looking then at the locations that get swapped out. So the entryway, the difference is it's the same shroud, it's the same number of clues, but the essentially the check your supplies. If you have torches, look at the top two cards of the exploration deck. Discard one treachery. So the difference is the original one said discard each treachery you look at. Now it's discard one treachery or enemy you looked at. But then they've added to the end, similar to the first scenario, this can be used at any location. So it's not restricted to only happening at the entryway.
No, exactly. So again, it's the idea that you're taking your torches through in that way, and that's why again. So if you're shuffling things from the encounter deck into here, you could have serpents jumping out at you through the exploration deck. You could have the Tintalos Alpha appearing. So it's a bit more. Yeah, the exploration deck is a sort of a richer source of stuff happening in that way. So yeah, these locations make it quite a bit different, don't they? So got here the sealed passage, which is 9 shroud. Wow, but there's no clues on it. It's got an action, check your supplies. If you have the key of Etzli, search the exploration deck and all set aside cards for the Chamber of Time. Put it into play. If it's Act 1A, skip directly to Act 2A. For the remainder of this act, sealed passage is connected to the Chamber of Time and vice versa. Now, I don't think you're going to have this key when you go through this the first time. This is really more of a end game thing.
When we come back later.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. So it's nice how they've done that, I think. Yep.
Next one I have is Grand Chamber. And that's another one that is swapped out for the original.
Yep.
So again, it's the same shroud, same clues. It's got the subheading now rearranged by time. So the original one had a forced effect of when you investigate it, if you do not succeed by at least 2, before resolving any other effects, you had to flip a clue to its doom. Now it doesn't have that forced effect, but it has the action, check your supplies. If you have a map and there are no clues here, then for the remainder of the scenario, it loses Vengeance 1 and gains Victory 1. So the original version was just a Victory 1 location. Right. Now it starts as Vengeance, but then becomes Victory once you've dealt with all the clues.
Yep. And there's this rather lovely mosaic chamber, which is 3 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. Check your supplies. Again, lots of checking of supplies. If you have a canteen, the chamber accepts your gift of water. Remove 1 doom from any location in play. Group limit once per game.
Accepts your gift of water. I like the way they worded that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next one I have is another swap out, Ancient Hall. So it has fewer clues this time. It's 3 shroud, but it's 1 clue per investigator instead of 2. The original version was forced at the end of the round, flip a clue to doom, and anyone can spend 3 resources to cancel that effect. Whereas now it enters play with 1 per investigator doom on it, and as an action you can flip a doom to a clue. And then a trigger action, check your supplies. If you have a compass, flip a doom to its clue side once per round. So again, you've got another opportunity to use your supplies, and then they've just tweaked how this doom to clue mechanic works. So rather than it starting with clues and slowly becoming doom, it starts with half of its clues already as doom, and you have to undo them.
Yeah. It's interesting that they're all called rearranged by time, these ones that have been replaced.
Yes.
Which suggests this idea that we're coming back. This is another timeline, and we're coming back again, which we are, if you return to. And we're going through this all again, which is very clever. I like that. The Tomb of the Ancients is a new one. It's a 4 shroud, 1 clue in per investigator location. Check your supplies. Lovely pictures on these as well. They're really evocative. They're really great. If an investigator at Tomb of the Ancients has rope, move to a revealed location up to 3 connections away. Until the end of the round, Tomb of the Ancients is considered to be connected to that location, and vice versa. Group limit once per round. So having the rope, it's more helpful in that way. It's good.
Okay, next one is the throne room. 5 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. While the throne room has doom on it, it is considered to be in the victory display for the purposes of counting vengeance, and it's vengeance 1 and victory 1. And as an action, if there are no clues or doom on the throne room, record a mysterious scepter in your supplies. Group limit once per game.
The mysterious scepter.
A new supply. How interesting.
Yeah. Then there's the Snake Pit, which is a 1 shroud, 1 clue per investigated location, which looks terrifying. It's a typical Indiana Jones thing where you're standing on this narrow bit of rock and there's snakes all around you. Forced. After you put Snake Pit into play by exploring successfully, but before moving to it, spawn 1 per investigator set aside pit viper enemies in Snake Pit to a maximum of 3. Viper... check your supplies. If an investigator at your location has binoculars, you may choose not to move to Snake Pit. Otherwise, you must move to it. So it's like, that's very nice. If you got the binoculars, you go, oh, don't go in there. My goodness, there's snakes. Otherwise, you stumble in there.
Very nice.
It'd be quite nasty, yeah.
And then last one is the Chamber of Time. If I remember right, wasn't this the location we were trying to get to?
That's right. Wrong. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
So it's the same 4 shroud, 2 clues per investigator. Again, this one is rearranged by time. I'm just trying to look at what is different. The only difference is the location symbols at the bottom.
Yep.
To account for the new locations that have been added in.
Yeah.
So there's no actual change to the location itself or its mechanics.
Yeah. So a lot of changes to that particular scenario. So it's really interesting. They've really made that one is really quite different.
And it's mainly adding a bunch of new locations and tweaking the existing ones to freshen up the gameplay, I guess, and add extra options and make it more replayable, I guess.
Yeah, and again, supplies, it's not just I need the map and this. It's actually the supplies again have more utility value to them than they used to have, which is good.
Excellent.
So that's Doom Investigator. Then we get on to Threads of Fate, which Threads of Fate was already fantastic with multiple storylines, but this one has an additional storyline. Yay!
3 act decks just wasn't enough.
Yes. So it's took me a bit to kind of work this one out, but you actually have to, in the pamphlet, it's in there. So it says Threads of Fate. So after reading the scenario introduction, but before performing the setup, read the following. As if you didn't already have several other pressing concerns, this morning's article in the Arkham Advertiser piqued your interest. Chaos in French Hill. The article goes on to describe several strange happenings cited around the estate of one Marshall Hastings in French Hill, an old and storied neighbourhood of Arkham. According to the article's source, who goes unnamed, the mansion has become a tangled mass of overgrowth and serpents. The article reports that a recent expedition returned with several strange artifacts in tow, meant to be displayed in the Hastings Manor. You wonder if this has anything to do with your expedition to find the Etzley. Even if these events are unrelated, your investigation might connect you with others who can assist you in turn. So that's an additional bit of information that's not related at all to what you've been doing so far. And then you have a choice.
So the setup card, so you perform your usual setup. We swap out the Dark Cult for Cult of Nakotas. There is a new story asset called Vida Whitsley. that you set aside out of play. Then, as you say, this encounter set contains a 4th G and H act deck. Adjust the contents as follows. We must choose. So if you wish to find the source named in the advertiser's story, then we remove Search for the Meaning, both copies of The Overgrown Estate, and one of the 2 copies of Seeking Trouble at random. If you wish to find the root of the problem, then we do the reverse, essentially. So you're building this 4th deck in the same way that we did the other 3. There's a choice and there's a random element, and between the 2 of them, that will determine what the final act card in play is.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's right. Something along those lines. Anyway.
That's exactly right. Yep. So it's a whole new thread of fate to explore, which is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So shall we go through the Search of Meaning one?
Okay.
Should we do that?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah. So the Search of Meaning at 1G. So there's the first one is just the 1. You decide to head to the estate of Marshal Hastings to learn more about the strange happenings mentioned in the advertiser's article. Perhaps this new development can shed light on your other recent troubles. Only investigators in Rivertown can spend the requisite number of clues as a group to advance, and it's 1 clue per investigator. And if you do, you get the Hastings estate. Put it into play, so it's like a kind of a Gothic mansion. Cross medicine off from your supplies, discover all the clues from the Hastings estate, because this is 3 shroud, 2 clues per investigators. Several caretakers and members of the expedition lie paralysed and comatose nearby. What the hell happened here? Victory 1. So something's happened. So then, with the Overgrown Estate, there is 1 of 2 copies. So they have the same objective. When you arrive at the Hastings estate, you find it much sorrier state than was originally described. The rainforesters come to Arkham, claiming the manor and the surrounding area almost entirely. Objective: only investigators at the Hastings estate can spend the requisite number of clues as a group to advance. So that's where we do the clues. And then there is 2 versions of these. In one version, you get Clinton Freeman should have stayed home. He is a asset. He's like an ally. Put Clinton Freeman into play at Velma's Diner. Advance to Act 3G, discover the truth. Or, and then if he's there, then you can parley with him at Velma's Diner. Testing 3 willpower, 3 intellect. If you succeed, place 1 clue on Clinton Freeman. Take 1 horror. If you fail, take 1 horror for each point you fail by. So this is one kind of thread that you possibly have. So you would have to then leg it over to Velma's Diner, I'm assuming. And
yes, once you parleyed with him.
So then if you've done that, then discover the truth. You're close to learning the truth behind this other expedition. What were they after and why? Does this have anything to do with Ichaka and Etzley? If there are 1 per investigator clues on Clinton Freeman, you must remove them immediately in advance. And so Clinton Freeman's in play. Mr. Freeman finally reveals to you the truth that his expedition was partially funded by mysterious philanthropists in Mexico City in return for several relics. Curious and worried, he and the partners offer to help you get to the bottom of this. The investigator nearest to Clinton Freeman takes control of the set-aside Vida Whitsley. Remove the remainder of the GH Act deck from the game. If another Act card is in play, continue playing. Otherwise, proceed to R1. So in that case, you get the new ally. And she's pretty good. So that's that one. If you don't get that version of Seeking Trouble, you get the other version. So if you don't get that version of the Overgrown Estate, if you get the other one, this one says, sent from another time. You scour the estate for clues, but find nothing that wasn't already described in the advertiser's article. It's like your fears have come to life. The rainforest has indeed followed you all the way here to Arkham. After dreading this for so long, it's almost a relief to finally be able to confront it. Just then, a familiar rattling echoes through the halls of the manor. The dreadful sound makes your skin crawl. Surely it couldn't be, could it? Yes, it is. It's the Harbinger. Woo! He's here. Spawning at the Hastings estate. It enters play with damage on it equal to the amount of damage recorded in parenthesis in your campaign. If there are 5 or few tally marks under Yig's Fury in your campaign log, it enters play exhausted. And then you go to Impossible Pursuit. You never thought the creature would track all the way back to Arkham. Track you all the way back to Arkham, or perhaps it's just a figment of your imagination, a ghost in your mind, a shard of your subconscious driving you away from this line of inquiry. If the Harbinger of Velusia leaves play, advance. If you advance, as quickly as it arrived, the serpent is gone. You're still not sure if it was really there to begin with, but for the moment it seems you are safe. Grateful for the assistance of several members of the other expedition. Grateful for your assistance, several members of the other expedition offer you their help. Whether or not here was a link to the Yetzley in the relics they found remains to be seen. Regardless, their expertise will surely be invaluable if creatures like this one continue to haunt your every step, and you get Vida Whitsley as well. And I was just thinking, the benefactor from Mexico City, that's got to be Alejandro, right? So it is linked.
I would think so, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
You would think so. So there you go. There's that kind of thread, if you like, which was the second one, which was the, just gone through.
So if I pick up the first one, so if you wish to find the source named in the story, so we do the search for the source, Act 1G. In order to get to the bottom of this new development, you decide to search for the anonymous source of the advertiser's article. Perhaps if you head to its offices in Northside, you can inquire further, although you may have to grease a few palms to get the information you need. So only investigators in Northside can spend the requisite number of clues as a group to advance, and it's 1 clue per investigator. So once you've done that, that reveals Merle Garvin, Unhelpful Guide. So he's a bystander and a wayfarer. A revelation put him into play at Miskatonic University, and similarly to the other act, you get the opportunity to parley with him. Mr. Garvin tries to give you the slip. So then you test evade of 2. If you succeed, place a clue on him from the token pool and move him 1 location away from you. If you fail, move him 2 locations away from you. So basically there's a chase going on now. You're trying to chase Merle. You're trying to talk to him and he keeps running away. So then, similar to the other act deck, we'll have a randomised version of Seeking Trouble. Both have the same front. You have learned the identity of the advertiser's source, a man named Merle Garvin, who recently returned from an expedition funded by none other than Marshal Hastings. He was last seen anxiously rummaging through the library at the university, though no one is quite sure why. So the objective is, if there's 1 clue per investigator on him, then you must remove them and immediately advance. So you've basically got to successfully parley and evade him, do the agility test with him, however many times there are investigators in the game.
Yeah.
So the first random one reveals the loading docks location. 4 shroud, 2 clues per investigator. As a revelation, put it into play with 4 resources on it. While there are no resources on it, clues cannot be discovered by any means. At the end of the round, remove 1 resource from loading docks. So you've only got 4 rounds. This is a way of adding a timer. Other than Doom to an individual location, which I'm not sure we've seen that before. If you then successfully investigate the loading docks, you then move to Discover the Truth, which is the one you've already read through. It's the same outcome as dealing with Clinton Freeman on the other path.
Yes.
But the reverse side, if loading docks was in play, thanks to Mr. Garvin's information, you discover that many of the expedition finds are heading to a surprising destination, an unspecified recipient in Mexico City. Grateful for your assistance, several members of the expedition offer you their help. The investigator nearest the loading docks takes control of Vida Whitsley, and it's the same essential outcome.
Yeah.
Whereas the other Act 2G card, when you finally track Mr. Garvin down and corner him, he is absolutely terrified, not of you, but of something else entirely. I wonder what that could be. It's coming, he warns. It won't ever stop until all of us are dead. Is it the Terminator? Please, you have to help me. You have to hide me. Before you can ask what it is that frightens him so, your unspoken question is answered by a familiar rattling. The dreadful sound makes your skin crawl. How could it be here in Arkham? So basically it's the same. We have the Harbinger comes into play, spawns at wherever Moore was, and it comes in with the same damage it had, exhausted, and we move on to Impossible Pursuit, and then that plays out exactly the same as the one you've read through.
Yep, there we go. And Vida Whitsley has got 4 pips, willpower, agility, and then 2 wildcards. So that's 4. That's a lot. And has a fast action. Exhaust Vida Whitsley. Look at the top card of the exploration deck or encounter deck. If it's an enemy, you may deal 1 damage to Vida Whitsley to discard it. If it's a treachery, you may deal 1 horror to Vida Whitsley to discard it. Otherwise, return it to the top of its deck. And she's got 3 health and 3 mental strength. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, she must be one of the toughest allies out there. Yes. 3 of each. That's very rare.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and only 1 cost asset. So, in the hands of Charlie Kane, she would be brilliant. Yeah. Yes, just to see Charlie in the jungle going, Vida, go ahead. Kill everything. So, yeah, Threads of Fate was already an awesome scenario, like one of my favorites. So that just adds a bit of extra stuff to do. Yeah. Although it's quite difficult to do.
I was going to say, I wonder if he's now adding too much to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Try and get all 4 acts done.
That would be rough.
Yeah. So, yeah, there is also, an update to the resolutions based on on how we deal with that.
Yes. Yep. So if Act 3G was complete, this is in Resolution 1. If Act 3G was completed, record in your campaign log that the investigators recruited the help of another expedition. Any one investigator can choose to include Vida Whitsley story asset in their deck. The card does not count towards investigator's deck size. Each investigator earns 1 additional experience for each Act 2 and 3 card that was completed during this scenario as you gain insights into the schemes of the Brotherhood. Additional experience gained for completing Act cards during this scenario, including Act 1 cards, and this is in bold, cannot be spent to purchase cards. Instead, it must be spent to remove poison or cure trauma, or it must be converted to supply points as outlined below. Other experience gained can be used to purchase cards and or for any of these other purposes as normal. So it's giving you extra points, but you've got to use them to, which is a sort of a nice concession, right? Get rid of poison, buy new supplies.
Yes, because it's
kind of thing.
This campaign is infamous for how tough it is with regards to trauma and poison and the like. Exactly. So at least it's giving you a little bit of respite. You've done particularly well at Threads of Fate. Let's use some of your experience. We'll give you some extra experience that you can then use to reset your character almost.
To be fair, you would realise that they're using more of the supplies now than they were before. So you might go, I'd actually like to buy more supplies.
Yes, because that's the other angle, isn't it? If you've done particularly well and you've not got trauma or poison, you can then use these points to buy more supplies to then open up more options for you in the next few scenarios.
And during the resupply point at the end of the scenario, there is no longer a limit to how much experience may be spent to remove trauma. Additionally, each investigator may convert up to 10 of their experience to supply points at a rate of 1 supply for every 2 experience converted. So again, it's giving you sort of a bit of extra stuff that you can do there. There we go.
There we go.
So that is the Threads of Fate.
Yeah, so now we go to the Boundary Beyond.
Yep.
Everyone's favourite. Okay, so the Return to Boundary Beyond instruction card. Perform the setup as instructed. But again, swapping out the encounter set. So we've got the Return to Boundary Beyond set, and then again the Temporal Flux is swapped for Temporal Hunters again. The Yig's Venom is swapped for Venomous Hate, and Dark Cult for Cult of Nakotas. And there are some new present-day locations to be added, and then you remove randomly to make sure there's still only one of each left in there. So similar to one of the earlier scenarios, you've got some alternate versions of the present-day locations, which you can swap out at random with the ones that came in the original.
Yes.
To mix it up a bit.
They're exactly the same locations, though, right? It's not like there are new locations. It's just that there's just more variability. That's all.
Yeah, different versions with different effects and different shrouds and such like. And then you set Harbinger aside, and then just to make it obvious, if the Harbinger does come into play, make sure you're using this new version, not the original version. So when building the exploration deck, only use the ancient locations. Do not include the other encounter cards. So again, we're not starting with encounter cards in the explore deck. You're only starting with the locations, but we've got that rule change that when you successfully explore, the treacherous or whatever will start getting added to the deck.
So it's a little bit easier at the beginning.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost a reversal, isn't it? Before, you knew there was a bunch of treacheries in there, so you might want to weed them out, and then it'll get more and more reliable doing your explorations, whereas now it's the other way around. You'll start getting the locations you need, but then it'll start to get more and more difficult because the treacheries are in there.
And I suppose with this one, you can't use a map or torches or whatever to sort of load up the exploration deck to your advantage. So they are making it a little bit easier. Like you say, at least at the beginning, so that you're not, it's possible you could just draw encounter cards for the first 3 times or something like that, which would be a bit rough. So, okay, interesting.
So, shall we have a look at the locations and just see how they differ? Shall we?
I mean, I feel like they're not new, so there's sort of variations on the scheme.
Just having a quick look, it's just slight tweaks. Like, for example, Chapultepec Park, it's an evade test instead of a willpower test.
Yeah.
So I think they're all just slight tweaks like that, really. It's just a bit of variation, so you're not quite sure what you're coming up against if you played it a million times.
Exactly. It's just giving you a bit of variability, that's all. Yeah, so I don't think we need to read them all out because they're pretty much the same, really. Yeah. Okay,
right.
That's Boundary Beyond. Just a bit easier to play. So I think, things tend to be, on balance, maybe a little bit more easier to play, but it's definitely the use of the supplies. So here we go, Return to the Heart of the Elders. Everybody's infamously annoying part 1. So I wonder what they've done here. So this one is perform the setup as indicated, as before. You've got the new versions of the rainforest, the
Pillars of Judgment and
the Pillars of Judgment.
Kenyan.
What's the other one? The Kenyan, and then of course we've got the Doomed Expedition again instead of Exploration. Now, in this one, you remove Act 1A, search for the pattern, with a new version, which is called a familiar pattern. So there's a new Act 1A. So it says 6 stone pillars surrounded the entrance to the cavern, each carved with a series of uncanny grooves and hieroglyphs that form an intricate pattern. Touching them causes the grooves to grow brightly, and twisting them causes the patterns to shift and change. Perhaps these patterns match the glyphs found in other regions of the rainforest. So they've slightly worded it differently. I think it originally said the jungle, but now it says the rainforest.
It did.
I'm not sure why they did that, but anyway.
They've added the rainforest setting, I think, haven't they? Or the return to the rainforest set.
Ah, yes, that's why.
I think.
Yes. And then the objective is when the investigators have collected the requisite number of clues, they must immediately spend them to advance. Now, when you advance, you get the winged serpent again, but this winged serpent is slightly different, slightly less nasty than the original. But there are also 2 feathered serpents which go into the encounter deck, so you could actually have potentially more serpents chasing after you in this one. That's the difference.
Yeah, so just looking at the winged serpent, its fight drops from 8 to 4.
Yep.
And its evade drops from 5 to 4. And it loses alert as well, which is always nice. So it's still Hunter and Massive, though. It still cannot be defeated, and it still cannot make attacks of opportunity. The original version was after you put a pillar on the mouth of Kenyan, you exhaust the winged serpent and it doesn't ready.
That's
but
right.
Now it's if there is 5 or more damage on the enemy, or if a pillar token is placed on the mouth of Kenyan, heal damage from this enemy and exhaust it. It does not ready during the upkeep phase this round. So it's the same thing, really. I'm not quite sure why. I suppose it's given you an extra option of dealing with the winged serpent. You can deal with it by fighting it now, whereas previously you couldn't. It was only by placing the pillar tokens on the mouth of Kenyan. Now you can. It gives your fighters something to do, I guess, if they can't help with the pillars.
Correct. Exactly. And the feathered serpent creatures are sort of a similar kind of thing. Fight is X, then 3 health, and then 3 evade. X is the number of pillar tokens on the mouth of Kenyan, while X, so it would be 6 to start with, wouldn't it? Where X is 3 or higher, feathered serpent gains alert and hunter. Then there's this action, evade. Check your supplies. If you have a mysterious scepter, you automatically evade the serpent and command it to deal its damage to another enemy at its location. So that's another thing. It could be doing the damage to the winged serpent.
Yeah. The pillar tokens on the mouth of Kenyan, you'd start off with however many ways you found. So it would start off at a low number and get higher. So
yes, yep.
So that X would
get stronger
once it gets over 3. He gains alert and hunter. Yeah, so it's if you didn't do particularly well on the boundary beyond, it'll at least be easier.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So some welcome changes there. I think that's quite good as well. If you've got the scepter, you've got other ways of dealing with the winged serpent. If you happen to get the feathered serpent, things like that. So yeah.
And then the only other difference is there is an additional resolution for Heart of the Elders Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, while resolving the no resolution was reached resolution, instead of replaying, you may choose to proceed with the following resolution. Resolution 2. You haven't yet completed the puzzle of the 6 pillars that serve as the entrance to Kenyan, but you don't wish to tarry any further in this hostile jungle. You decide to enter the cavern anyway, hoping that whatever wards the pillars represent are nothing but ancient superstition. You have trespassed in a hostile land. Place pillar tokens on the mouth of Kenyan until there are exactly 6. Then for every pillar token you added, record 2 tally marks under Yik's Fury. As you pass by the pillars, intense pain wrenches its way through your body, and you are afflicted with a terrible curse. Each investigator who is poisoned takes a mental trauma. Each investigator who is not poisoned adds a set-aside poison to their deck. Proceed to resolution 1. So I guess it's just, effectively, it's a way of saying, okay, rather than do it again, just take a bit of trauma and off you go.
Exactly.
Which might actually be the end result of doing it 3 times anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So you're very welcome that you don't have to keep replaying it over and over again. Yep. Yes.
Excellent. So I guess then there's Heart of the Elders Part 2.
Yep.
As we moved on towards, as we've just solved the puzzle of the pillars. And looking at the Part 2 card, So you perform the setup, with the exception of swapping out the encounter sets again as usual, and having a different version of the Harbinger. And then similar to previous scenarios, they've added new versions of some of the locations, so you can swap them out for new versions.
But they're the same. Are they the same, or are they different locations?
Let me have a look. So
They look like they're new ones.
So it's the same symbols but new
But
locations.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
So originally it was Dark Hollow, Vast Passages, Hall of Idolatry, and Perilous Gulch.
Yep.
And now it's Ruins of Kenyan, Subterranean Swamp, Chthonian Depths, and Treacherous Descent.
Ah, yes.
So I guess we'll have a look at those, shall we?
Yes. Yep.
Just double check, have I missed anything else? Similar to the other ones, the check your supplies ability on the Mouth of Kenyan can be used anywhere. And it can discard enemies as well as treacheries.
Yep.
And then it's just a reminder about the Explore rules changes.
Yep.
Cool. Do you want to take the first new location?
Yeah. Ruins of Kenyan. 4 shroud, 2 clues per investigator. It has a double action. Check your supplies. If you have a compass, discover 2 clues on the ruins of Kenyan. Limit once per game. So again, we're coming back to this, the supplies being more useful.
Yeah, and it's Victory 1, same as the original triangle location as well.
Correct, yep.
Okay, next one I have is the Subterranean Swamp, which is the green diamond. So it's a slightly easier location than the Perilous Gulch it replaced. It's 2 shroud instead of 4, but it's 2 clues per investigator instead of 1. So as a a trigger, if there are no clues on Subterranean Swamp, check your supplies, and if you have a canteen, place a doom on this location and record sticky goop in your supplies. Group limit once per game. But as a forced, after you fail a skill test while investigating Subterranean Swamp, check your supplies, and if you don't have a pocket knife, lose all remaining actions and end your turn. Not quite sure why a pocket knife is particularly useful for investigating the swamp. Maybe there's like the vines or roots or whatever. Yeah, perhaps.
I think a machete would be more what you'd need, but anyway, yeah.
Okay.
The next one is the Chthonian Depths. I'm not sure what that replaced. I don't have that in front of me, but it's 3 shroud.
Hall of Idolatry that replaced.
Hall of Idolatry, right. It's 3 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. Forced after the last clue is discovered from Chthonian Depths. Check your supplies. If no investigator at this location has torches, place a doom on it.
Okay. And then I have Treacherous Descent, and it's my turn to not know what that replaces. I can't see the... Yes. So Crystal Pillars was 1 and 2, but this one is 6 shroud and 1 clue per investigator, so significantly more difficult. Check your supplies. If you have a pickaxe, reduce the shroud value by 2 for the remainder of the scenario, but you can do that 3 times per game. Right. So I guess you're using the pickaxe to make your way down the descent, I guess. Is probably the narrative way of looking at it.
Yep.
So you're not actually investigating the location, you're just making your way down it, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
And all of these have the same victory points as the locations they replaced, so you're not getting any bonuses.
Yeah, what I like about I wish they've used this more, is that you have the supplies, but when you get them, you don't know if you're going to need them, like you would be with supplies, right?
Yeah.
You better take this, better take that. They might come up, but then again, they might not. You know what I mean? If you happen to have them, you're going to be like, all right, happy days. I'm glad I brought that pickaxe along. So it's I really like that they're really kind of making the supplies something that could really, if you just happen to have the right ones, could really benefit. There we go. So that's the good old Heart of the Elders. So return to the City of Archives, perform the setup as before, but there are some new encounter set cards for the return to. Put the Halls of Dakota's Southern Corridors into play at the beginning. So
that's now a fourth wing of the City of Archives, basically, isn't it? Because it was the three before, east, west, and north.
That's
So
right.
now we've got south.
Set Cyclopean Vaults and Alien Conservatory aside out of play. They're new ones. And remove Act 2A restricted access from the game and replace it with the new Act 2A, which is unrestricted access.
I like the way they've done that, because restricted access. Yeah, you couldn't get to the southern one before.
No,
but now you
exactly.
can.
Can now, exactly. And so basically, you have to get 3 of the following are true, but now you've got 8 things to choose from. So it's adding, like you say, an extra wing on, which is very welcome. That means you've got extra opportunities to do things, so it just makes the scenario a little bit easier. You've got more places to go and things to do.
Yeah. So shall we look at the new locations then?
Yep.
I mean, Halls of Nokotis is exactly like the others, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
You can discard a card to move around freely.
Yep.
So let's look at the first proper location. I have Cyclopean Vaults. 5 Shroud, 1 clue per investigator. As an action, you can discard each non-weakness card in your hand. You think, why would I need to do that? Then, as an action, if you have no cards in your hand, remember that you read about Earth. And as a double action, if you have fewer than 5 cards in your hand, you can draw until you have 5 cards. So I guess that's just a way there of using a bunch of actions to achieve that objective and then get some cards back again.
Yes, right. Yeah.
I think I'm not quite sure how narratively losing all of your cards fits with having read about Earth, but...
Yeah, in the vaults, it's not a library or something. Maybe it's vaults of information. Oh, yeah, there are looks like there are books or something.
So, like, you could only read about Earth if you don't have any cards in your hand. Not
clear,
why that fits.
Exactly. There's some flavour text on the other side.
Yes, I've just realised that. I just put the card down and we're missing all the flavour text. What are we doing? So yes, the flavour text on that one. I came at last to a low circular crypt with arches, still in a marvellous state of preservation, opening off on every side. The walls, or such parts of them as lay within reach of my torchlight, were densely hieroglyphed and chiselled with a typical curvilinear symbols, some added since the period of my dream. That's from The Shadow Out of Time.
And then the Alien Conservatory has another Shadow Out of Time quote. The great race itself waxed well nigh omniscient and turned to the task of setting up exchanges with the minds of other planets and of exploring their pasts and futures. So this is a 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. Alien Conservatory, it's like lots of lots of tanks with aliens in them.
Yeah.
While you're at the Alien Conservatory, decrease your maximum hand size by 2. Action, test 1 willpower. If you succeed, test 2 agility. If you succeed, test 3 intellect. If you succeed, remember that you saw a familiar specimen.
Yeah, I'm just squinting at the images there just to see if we can see a familiar specimen. Whether it'd be nice if one of those images was an encounter card we'd seen before. But none of them are standing out at me.
I don't know if it's related to the captive subjects, which is a monster that's a new monster that's added to this. It spawns in the Alien Conservatory. It's aloof and retaliate. It looks like I don't know what it looks like. But it says, if an investigator read about Earth or saw a familiar specimen, captive subject loses aloof and gains hunter. So, captive subjects. Is that...
Interesting.
Not sure.
But yeah, so like you said earlier, it's nice to have other options, isn't it? So we've got that
Yeah.
whole new wing with 2 more objectives.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So just
not a
adds
major change, just more.
No.
Bit like
More
Threads of
stuff.
Fate, really, and more
Exactly.
options to do.
Yes. Yes. Then we get into the good old depths of Yoth, which is very brief in terms, not much.
Huge changes here. There's one card. So yeah, perform the setup as usual, swapping out your encounter sets as before. Swap out the Harbinger, and after you build the exploration deck, you shuffle that one new card into the exploration deck, which is Perils of Yoth. It's a hazard, peril, revelation. You must choose either set Perils of Yoth aside out of play, this exploration fails, or set it aside out of play, take horror or damage equal to the current depth level, and continue exploring as if you had not drawn Perils of Yoth. I guess it's a little bit of a pushy look, I think. Maybe if there might be more treacheries in the deck still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those that's not so bad at the beginning, but later on,
No.
I'm just going to fail this one. I'm not taking 7 horror.
Yes. There's also an additional thing here in the resolution, I think, for Depths of Yoth.
So check your supplies. If you have sticky goop and you've collected a strange liquid, the liquid from the fountain dissolves the viscous substance, revealing a solid object. Record Key of Etzley in any one investigator's supplies. And wasn't that the one that was referred to back at the beginning?
Yeah, so in the... Yeah, that's right. So it was the sealed whatever it was, the sealed room or whatever.
Yes.
That took you directly to the it was a sealed passage. If you had that key, it was linked directly to the Chamber of Time. So for some reason, there's some connection here to that. What was the liquid from the fountain? Oh, you got the sticky goop. Collected a strange liquid. Don't remember the collecting a strange liquid. But anyway, it must be something that was...
Wasn't there like some sort of altar or something with a liquid?
Yes, there was. So basically, if you get those 2 parts, you're going to make the very end of the game a lot easier for yourself when you go back to the Doom of Etzley, because you'll be able to go straight there if you find the good old seal passage. You'll be at the Chamber of Time in no time. So that's definitely worth getting. Then we go into Shattered Eons. So with Shattered Eons, this has got perform the setup as per usual. You're replacing and you're using the Temporal Hunters, and you're using the Cult of Nikotis again here. When building the exploration deck, use only the 4 single-sided otherworld locations. Do not include any other encounter cards in the original setup. So that's, again, no encounter cards. Set aside the shattered locations outside of play. For the duration of the scenario, the usual rules apply, but there's some new otherworld locations.
Yeah, and there's 1 new otherworld location and 2 new shattered.
2 shattered, yeah, exactly.
So now it's 4 otherworlds instead of 3.
Yep.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 shattered instead of 6.
Locations. Exactly. So the otherworld location is the Great Hall of Ciliano, which is a 3 shroud, 3 clue location, reaction trigger. After you move to the Great Hall of Ciliano, place 1 doom on it. Look at the top card of the encounter deck, the exploration deck, or any other player deck. You may discard that card. Go.
Yeah. Then looking at the shattered locations, first one I have is Buenos Aires. 5 shroud, 3 clues, fixed 3 clues as well. Buenos Aires gets -2 shroud for each doom on it. and at the end of each Mythos phase, you place a Doom on it. So it's another sort of a timer effect that affects both the location and the Doom threshold for the scenario.
Yeah. And then the Ultima Thule is the other shattered location. It's 4 Shroud, 2 Clues. Force after Ultima Thule enters play. Search the Chaos Bag for the Elder Sign Chaos token and seal it on Ultima Thule. Ouch. There we go. So not much change there, really.
Yeah, just a little bit of extra randomization in the Explore deck, really. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not much change at all. So
There's a couple of new treacheries as well. They're both in unknowable past. It's another peril.
Yep.
And the revelation is a choice. Either reveal 4 chaos tokens, and for each symbol that isn't the Elder Sign, take a damage and a horror. Or choose and discard a card from your hand and shuffle it back into this unknowable past back into the exploration deck. But you can't do that if that's where you got it from.
yeah. Yes. There we go. Yeah, and then there's just the turn back time, I guess, isn't there? The turn back time one, and then I think that's it, isn't it?
Return to turn back time. Yes. The title is getting a little bit convoluted now, isn't it?
If I could return to turn back time.
We all knew you were going to do that.
I don't know, but I don't think Cher ever wants to return to turn back time. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so when gathering the encounter sets, you swap them out as listed there. Gather the 3 Pit Vipers and set them aside. Remove the original Burial Pit, Underground Ruins, and Secret Passages from the game, and replace the originals. So basically, it's back to how was it the Doom of Etzley was set up? Where
it's exactly the same.
Yeah, we took out the original locations and added in some new, different locations.
Yeah,
swap out the Harbinger, and use different cards when you're building the exploration deck.
Yeah.
So it's just a repeat, really.
Yes.
With the same objectives, and as we saw, some of those new locations include that key of the Etzley that you can only pick up later in the campaign. So it only makes sense when you are returning to turn back time.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So what do you reckon about all that, Kevling?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like most of the Return 2s, a lot of it is just adding a little bit of variety to scenarios you've played many times before. But they have, like you say, taken the opportunity to make it slightly less punishing with that option after Threads of Fate of healing your treacheries and your traumas, and improving how the explore mechanic works, and some of the little niggles they've smoothed out slightly, but overall it's more of the same, isn't it?
It is more of the same. Like you say, there's sort of quality of life changes that they've made. You don't have to do the Heart of Elders Part 1 20 times and that kind of carry on. So they've managed those. The biggest thing is they've made the supplies more useful.
Yes, a lot more utility there, yeah.
So, but interestingly, I expected that they would nerf the game a little bit more. I kind of thought they would, and even though they've given people quality of life, they've not necessarily made it that much easier, really. So
no.
They've kind of maintained that difficulty, but just given people more tools to manage the scenarios through the supplies, I guess.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest change is that opportunity after Threads of Fate of healing the traumas that you've gained on those first few scenarios, because I think the level of trauma you gain on this campaign is
Yeah.
pretty unprecedented, isn't it, compared to the other campaigns? And that's why people found it so punishing when it was first released. So yeah, it's nice that there's that sort of smooth that out a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah, pretty good all in all. I think it's one of those things that once you know this campaign, a little bit like Dunwich, I think you would probably want to play it with the additional use of the supplies and things like that, not having to, I think it kind of makes sense to use those. So I'm appreciative of that. So yeah, pretty good. Yep.
I wonder if it's worth just having a quick run through the achievements lists, because some of them make me smile.
Yeah, why not? That's a great idea. Yeah.
So, first one is, why did it have to be snakes? So again, we're touching on the Indiana Jones theme, and that is defeat 20 serpent enemies. Keep track in your campaign log.
The next one is watch them unravel. Complete all 4 act decks during a single playthrough of Threads of Fate. We were just talking about that. That would be a good one to do.
Yeah. Hope for Humanity is restore Ichtaca's faith in humanity in the boundary beyond.
Scenario 5. What? Skip Heart of the Elders Part 1. Oh, yes, of course. You could skip the whole thing, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that. You could. Yeah.
Oh, and then Beyond Perfection. Complete all 8 tasks on Act 2 of the City of Archives in a single playthrough.
Wow. Do you feel like these would be standalone scenarios that you do these achievements on, Kevling? Is that
maybe?
Yeah. And then the next one is I remember everything. Restore Alejandro's memories in the City of Archives.
Then Patricide. Defeat Yig in the depths of Yoth.
Okay. He's got a point. Side with Alejandro and Shattered Eons.
And then on the reverse of that, Fallujah sounds great. Side with Ichtaca in Shattered Eons.
I've built up an immunity. Win the Forgotten Age campaign without ever becoming poisoned.
We have an understanding. Win the Forgotten Age without ever dealing damage to the Harbinger of Fallujah.
Who needs any of this junk? Win the Forgotten Age campaign without purchasing any supplies. Whoa.
Without purchasing? Okay. Oh, I thought that was going to be without using, but actually not buying any. Wow.
No.
Don't tread on me. Win the Forgotten Age with no tally marks under Yig's Fury. Next one is the one we did, I think.
Yeah, we've done that one. You're right. Because you just blow up the temple, right?
Yeah.
With the Don't Tread on Me, you would have to play pacifist, wouldn't you? You'd have to literally avoid everything.
Yeah, you've got to no killing of serpents or...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If I could turn back time, forge your own path, unlock Scenario 9 and win the Forgotten Age campaign.
And to Yoth expertise, win the Forgotten Age campaign on expert difficulty.
Oh, boy. Yes.
Yeah.
There we
go.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah. There's some good stuff there. That was great. So next time we'll do a big grand final wrap up of the Forgotten Age campaign. We'll talk about the story, the lore. I want to talk about difficulty and the concept of difficulty and whether it's a good, because I don't think there's ever been quite a campaign since or before that was quite as difficult as this one. So that kind of difficulty achievement thing going on. So I'm interested to talk about that as well. And we're going to have a special guest, Leroy, friend of the channel, who's going to come along, and it's a particular favorite campaign of his. He likes the tough difficulty, so we'll be able to talk to him about that as well. So and then that will tie up the Forgotten Age. Was there any other things, Kevling, we were going to do with the Forgotten Age?
I don't think so. We talked about maybe having a roundup of the investigators.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to see that, let us know. Otherwise, we might just press on to Circle Undone.
Yeah,
That's what's next, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, that's right. The good old Circle Undone. Yeah, something above ground.
One of my least favourites is Circle Undone, so that's going to be interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't often come up in people's most favourites, so I'm interested to revisit it.
Yes, definitely.
See, a hard act to follow after Carcosa and Forgotten Age. Whatever you think about Forgotten Age, it's epic. It's epic beyond
definitely.
imagining. So we'll see how the Circle Undone fares after all that. So thanks very much for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time for a final wrap-up of the Forgotten Age. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
And I'm Kevling.
Bye.
Bye. So once more, thank you for listening. We're on all the major podcast platforms, so please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. If you have any feedback for us, you can email us on ftextpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram and Threads at ftextpodcast. So on behalf of CrabbyTerror8 and myself, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye!